We're live. Joe, Alex, welcome. How you doing, gentlemen?
Good.
Good. Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Joe.
Nice to see you as well, gentlemen. Haven't seen you for a while, Alex. We already had this discussion off camera, but we'll pretend we didn't, and we'll have this conversation again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good seeing you. It's good seeing you.
Nice to see you too. Yeah.
Look at that. We got Martin here already, Richard here already. Good evening, guys. How you doing? Sam, as usual, is watching Jeopardy or getting his hair done. We're not sure. So he'll be
One
here.
or the other.
He'll be fashionably late, as he always is. So.
I'm too stupid for Jeopardy, and well, we don't have to talk about the hair. So that doesn't.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, all the cool kids and Alex look like this.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
You're welcome.
Right. So, anything new and exciting, guys? What's going on? How's life in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh, it's always good down here in good old Central Ohio. A little bit of a cooler day today. We had topped out at about 66 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. But just normal late May weather, I guess. So, yeah, all good is here. All good is here. But I haven't seen Joe in a while. I was glad Joe's going to be here. What has Joe been up to?
Yes, Joe, tell us.
Joe has been starting up his record store. I retired a couple of years ago. Thank you. Most of you have heard this story, but I retired a couple of years ago. It kind of dragged me back a little bit to answer phones and do some stuff around the shop. And then one day I said to the boss, I said, you know what, we should, you want to go halves on this vinyl collection I'm looking at? And then he goes, well, why don't we just start a shop? And then 3 months later, and a whole bunch of albums and a whole bunch of cleaning and a whole bunch of price stickers and everything else, we have a shop. So there's some videos out there. I should put them up on this version. It has its own channel. It's called On a Vinyl. The store that I keep saying I used to work for, I guess I'm back there now, is On AV, like the on symbol, audio visual. And then, so I just wanted to keep the logo the same, and then I just added vinyl at the end. So it's On a Vinyl. So if you want to have a little bit of a look at the store, there it is. Rob, I think you're
I subscribe. I think I was like subscriber number 6.
Yeah, I think you were one of the first.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, for sure. So
I wanted to see what Joe does in the real world.
Well, we're trying. We're trying. And other than that, enjoying spring. Looking forward to Canadian Football League season coming up, and couldn't give a rat's ass about hockey. And yeah, nice to see you guys.
And since Joe brought up sports, I'm going to tell everyone again in the comments, we're not going to talk about baseball, so don't ask me what I think, because then I'll derail the whole thing and I'll rant about baseball for an hour, and nobody wants to hear that. So how's the response been to the record store? Are you getting some traffic in there and folks buying stuff?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. As much as I've been able to promote it, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, things like that, there is a local Jack FM is the radio station, and they're kind of a 80s, 90s, 70s, a little bit of 60s hits kind of a station. There's one of them everywhere. This just happens to be Jack. Anyway, on Tuesdays last week or a couple of weeks ago, they started doing Turntable Tuesdays. So in the DJ world or in the radio business world, it's all digital now. It's all on a computer. You don't even have to be there. But what they're doing is once or maybe twice an hour, they've actually got a turntable hooked up into the system, and they're playing songs off of vinyl. And we're going to be the sponsors of that. So It will be On a Vinyl brings you Turntable Tuesday on Jack 94.5. I think we haven't officially said that yet, but I believe that's where we're going. And then hopefully that will increase the traffic and make it well. So pricing's
That's
good.
a cool idea. That is a great idea.
Are we streaming, Joe?
No, not yet. No.
Okay.
So yeah, no. But and then I'm kind of going the Dylan from Noble Records route, where I'm not going to ship stuff. I want people to come in. Part of it is obviously to sell some records, but part of it is to get people into the store, because we sell turntables, we sell amplifiers, we sell speakers. So we want people to come in and have a look at that. So I'm not going to, plus I still really think, and I think we've all talked about this, I really think that shipping stuff is just a pain in the ass, and I just don't want to get into that. Again, I'd rather have people come in locally to the shop and buy. So
yep.
Yeah.
Hello to everyone joining us, Martin and Richard. Music in the House, Music Sanctuary, Record Hound. I don't know if you guys know this Sam St. John fella. I don't know what his deal is.
I always wonder how he's able to join the chat but not the video. You know?
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. But
FBA, welcome, sir.
Yes, nice to see FBA. I do like Sam's suggestions of Floppy Disk Friday. That could be on a completely different type of a channel, but we'll leave it at that.
Look who's joining us. Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Folks, as a host of the Violent Community Podcast, ignore my episodes. This is the man that does the best.
Watch David's is what you're saying?
Yeah, watch David's. His voice, man,
he does have a good voice for sure.
It sounds terrible. David, I can listen to you read the phone book, man.
That's good.
I aspire to do an episode as well as you do, sir.
Rob, I could listen to you eat the phone book.
You really want that? Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, Dan's here. Hey, Dan. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. I don't know if mine are great, but we'll call it passable. Joe and I have an episode coming up on Monday. So,
hey,
Chris, how you doing, pal?
Chris, how's it going, man?
Boy, we got lots of folks watching tonight.
It's awesome. It's good.
Yeah. Oh,
Vance is here.
Jeez, everybody.
Vance, remind me in the chat which Stone show you're going to. Are you going on the 27th or the 30th?
Are you going to a Stone show, Alex?
Excuse me, pardon.
Getting all choked up.
Yeah, I'm going on June 30th in Chicago. So
cool.
I'm contemplating it. They're in Vancouver, so we'll see. I have about 100 entries into the local radio stations giving away the trip to see them in Vancouver, but I might just take advantage and just go anyway. So saw them twice in 2006. The one time they played here, went Friday and went, why aren't I going on Sunday too? Because there was a little bit of a set change and it was fantastic. So, and even at that point, Mick was 63, 06, whatever. I can't do the math.
You thought it was the end of their career then.
Yeah, nope. I think that was middle career. I think they might make into the 3000s. I don't know for sure. They might.
Oh, we'll talk.
How far Chicago from you, Alex? What kind of drive's that?
It's about, I think, 5.5. But you gain an hour, whatever that's worth.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It doesn't make the drive any better, but
no, exactly. Yeah.
But it's better there than on the way back, where it's 7.5 hours basically. So.
Yeah, sure. I don't know that I'd drive that far for a concert. Maybe that's like me driving to Montreal.
Yeah,
and that's a shitty drive.
And typically I wouldn't drive. I mean, they're playing in Cleveland, which is 2 hours away,
right.
But I'm meeting
Rob,
out there,
you should drive to Vancouver. You should do the true Canadian road trip, go all the way.
No, isn't there the famous train or something that people? Isn't that the big bucket list thing?
There's 2 of them. There's the Rocky Mountaineer and the Great Canadian. I would love to do one of them because it's incredible, but it's stupid expensive.
Yeah,
you want to go from Toronto to Vancouver on the Rocky Mountaineer, which is the nice one. Even if you don't get like the prestige class, you're still paying like $5,000 a person.
Nope.
For like average, not coach, but like, you get your own bench.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to. I'd like to take it from Calgary to Vancouver, but someday when I'm old or older. But drive across the prairies, no goddamn way.
Last year was pretty cool. Now, I didn't drive across the prairies because I already started there. But here to Ottawa and back for Blues Fest last year was pretty amazing. I do recommend it as a thing to do at least once.
I don't know, man. I did. No offense, but driving across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, no, I'm good.
All right, fine.
Be
that way.
Well, and you know what, I mean, I guess around Thunder Bay, it's kind of nice looking, but
it's cool. I mean,
that's what they invented airplanes for.
Yeah, I know. That's what my wife said, and I eventually talked her into it, and she enjoyed it. So I'll give you your money back if you go and you don't enjoy it.
Oh, hey,
I don't know what that means, but anyway, Sam.
How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing well. How are y'all? Joe, good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
For those tuning in, they realize that Joe is not Jay. Jay is busy working today, so we called someone up from AAA Buffalo, and that's Joe.
No sports talk.
Oh yeah, we're not allowed to talk about baseball. That's right.
No sports talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's up, Sam? What you been doing?
I've been out and about most of the day. Actually, I just finished having supper with my sister. I met her after work, so that's why I'm a little bit late. That sort of thing. So, I mean, not a whole lot in Virginia here. But no, this is a fun little topic that we have going on here. Hey, Richard, everybody in the chats. I'm seeing I see a show this Friday that I'm excited about with one of my buddies. They're called Trampled by Turtles. I think I mentioned them before.
That's a fantastic name.
I wonder if you would like them, Rob, because they have like the banjos and like they're it's like a punk energy to their music. Like, you know, like really fast paced, like not even like picking necessarily, but like just like thrashing banjo strumming. And again, they're from Minnesota, so they don't have that twang. If the twang bothers you, like, you know, that's why I don't get people to watch my videos because of the twang. But you know,
hello, Darren, fellow Canadian. Joe's fellow Canadian too, but he's a little further away than you. He's out in Regina.
Yep.
And Darren, I am 40 minutes north of you on Highway 6. You can figure out what city that is. Welcome, by the way. Trampled by Turtles, hometown boys from here in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yep.
I'll have to check them out because you have mentioned them before. So
yeah, and they do. I mean, they've toured with, you know, like I saw them open for the Avett Brothers in 2019. I saw them at a festival in 2014, like a partial set anyway. I had to leave early to get back home. So I've seen them a couple times in various, you know, towns, but this will be the first time that I've seen them headline.
Cool.
And a buddy of mine is going. He's actually more excited for the opener, who are kind of like a regional band. So
Duluth, one of the original towns for Bob Dylan, if I remember correctly, is it not? Started there, like started there, wasn't it? Or
he's from Hibbing, I believe, Hibbing, Minnesota. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where he was. I know he played like a rock band in Minnesota for a bit. Like he was electric before he went folky.
Right.
Which a lot of people forget. He was playing, you know, 50s tunes in high school.
I went through Duluth last year, and I thought that was one of the things. Hey, if you want to go see, but it was like he you know, he had a coffee there and in some.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if he you know said this is the toilet that Bob Dylan used on the side of the interstate. Yeah, I'm sure people are taking pictures. Yeah.
Do you know a band, Sam, called Pert Near Sandstone? Apparently, they're like Trampled by Turtles.
I've done some things near Sandstone, but no, I don't know who.
Like the Bob Dylan toilet, yeah, we know.
Pert Near, no, I haven't heard of them.
What? Cool.
But everything. I mean, I was listening to y'all talk a little bit. I caught the updates from Joe. Everybody else, I saw Alex yesterday, so I don't even need to talk to him. Everything good up there in the Great White North.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't have anything exciting to report. Working my ass off, and that's about it.
Well, that sounds like a life to me. It's exciting stuff.
It's it pays the mortgage. So, what more can I ask for?
How does this is a brand? This is my first stream on this computer. Does the sound okay?
Hey, sound good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sound really clear, sir.
Yes.
Very much
Hey,
so.
call that proactive. Clear, as clear as the skin.
Yeah.
I got it.
How
How is that new Avett Brothers?
It's good. I've given it a couple spins. Again, Alex and I were talking a little bit about it yesterday, that they're not coming near me for some reason. I've seen them every year. I mean, with the exception of COVID, I've seen them, you know, the last 3 years or so. And they're not coming near me at this time, but I would love to see them with these songs. This is not where I would start a new Avett Brother fan, but by any means, because it's a more mellow record. It's only 9 tracks. And I mean, a third of it is kind of classic Avett energy, and the rest of it is, you know, more subdued kind of stuff, more introspective. And I kind of said it to Alex, it's kind of like their adult record, because they're both pretty seasoned and being fathers at this point. And, you know, just talk about, that kind of stuff. So I mean, I like it a lot. I think Alex said he liked it when he heard it kind of at work the other day, but I have to give it a few more spins to figure out where I'd put it in their canon. But
all I've heard is the one song they did they're on one of the late night shows. Was it?
They were on Fallon not too long ago. Yeah, and they were on like CBS Saturday morning.
I saw it on Fallon. I don't watch Fallon because Fallon's an idiot, but I think I saw the Fallon clip on YouTube, and I liked it. It seemed a little different than some of the stuff I'm used to from him.
I think they did "Love of a Girl" is what it was.
I think so.
Kind of more of like their punk song on the record, which the Avett Brothers, their original time, like when they were in their teens and 20s, they were in like almost like a thrash, like screamo band almost.
Yeah.
And they were all about noise, and then that was like such a huge 180 for them to flip to acoustic instruments. But they were bringing that punk energy in those early records, and then they really, with Rick Rubin, obviously, he said, "Y'all are too good at your songwriting to, always act like a clown up on stage." So he really focused in on their songwriting as a huge part of their appeal, and that's kind of where they've landed since like 2007 with Emotionalism. So.
Cool. I've got some coming for the shop, including my own. So I'm looking forward to it.
No, it's good.
I'm late to the party on them, but I'm going to enjoy the party now that I'm there.
You should. Yeah, like I said, that's not where I would start people, but I mean it's still good.
Where would you start, Sam?
I mean their biggest album is called I Am Loving You, which was their debut with Rick Rubin on American Records. But so I Am Loving You, like that whole string, like that, and then The Carpenter, and then Magpie and the Dandelion, all those are pretty solid. And then if you want to go back into like their more raw stuff, like a good segue album would be like Emotionalism, which has some good ballads, it has some good fast-paced stuff. Some pretty solid concert staples are on that record. So I Am Loving You is where I would start for sure.
The only one I own physically is Carpenter, and I think that's a great album. I love
Carpenter, yeah. That was the follow-up to. Yeah, I think that was the follow-up.
I think so.
Yeah, it was. I'm looking over at my little CD collection over there. Yeah. So.
Cool.
Not to be confused with my CD collection,
All right, so we're going to segue into the topic. We're talking tonight about music documentaries, music biopics, anything of that sort of ilk, right? So that's what we're talking about. So, I don't know. Who came up with that, Sam? Was that your idea?
It was 1,000,000% my idea, right, Alex?
I don't remember shit.
No, it wasn't I think it was Alex.
Well, it was, just there's a lot
sorry,
of
Alex,
documentaries out right now.
I didn't mean to deprive you of credit for that. I'm sorry.
No, well, and I was to give a little bit more, because I pulled some things, and you're curious to what you all have to say. Especially I want to give a shout out to Joe here. Really giving a shout out, rest in peace to one of the originators of the documentary, because he was Canadian, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
Maybe not then. I never mind. But anyway, unrelated. But the idea was, we got a Beach Boys one out, we got a Kiss one out, all these different things. So there's a lot of documentaries out right now, and I was just thinking of like, okay, like what are some of the best ones that we've seen, or the ones that we've just loved and fallen in love with, and then like, are there those artists that we are just jonesing for? Like, we need a documentary, we need a deep dive into XYZ. So I don't know if you all pulled some of those or anything like that. That's totally fine too. You don't need to show things, but I was just thinking of like, dang, like I'll talk about my pick because I talk about them, I feel like every week, of like the artists we need the deep dive on. But curious to what you all have.
Why don't you lead the parade, man? Since it was your idea.
Okay, yeah, sure. So there's I guess a theme, a little bit to mine. Thank you. And which is to me, I appreciate the documentaries of artists or bands or whoever that are fairly, I don't want to say fairly unknown, but something where it was like, yeah, no one really thought about them that much. And then there was this documentary and everybody learned so much, and it was like this cool thing. So you're probably not going to see like some, Beatles or like, these huge bands represented necessarily. in mind, but instead artists that people maybe don't talk about enough. And then to me, it was like they just blew up. So, and also some genres that aren't talked about on Wednesday evenings that much. And you know what? We'll start with this one because this was one of the craziest documentaries. I think, just an amazing documentary. It was so well done. It's got like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. If you're one of those people of like, what is, like the ratings have been just amazing. It came out in 2017. Let me just make sure I got the title right here. And it is based on, at least in my opinion, I think what a lot of other people would call one of the greatest jazz trumpeters ever. That's not named Miles Davis. And it's called I Called Him Morgan, about Lee Morgan. So I'm sure a lot of people in the vinyl community have seen this record a lot. This called the Sidewinder. It's one of the, rated as one of the best jazz records of all time. But it's from Lee Morgan, who died in 1972 and was murdered by his wife.
What?
After a show, like in the club. And so, it walks through obviously his story, where he grew up, like how well respected he is. Like it has the musical aspect for sure, where you're just like really diving in deep. And then you have the story of like him and the relationship he had with his wife. And like, I think the story is she thought he was cheating on her, something. He plays a show at this jazz club in New York City. She gets out the cab, goes into the club, shoots him. And it's also the middle of a snowstorm. And so ambulance can't get there. I mean, it's this whole thing. And then, dies in 72. And so, to me, and especially, if there's not a lot of jazz fans or people like, I don't really care about jazz. I think a lot of it for me was learning about the people and the musicians from that standpoint first, and then growing more appreciative of their musical output. So it wasn't like, oh, I love jazz, now I want to go back and like, watch these things. It'd be like, oh, like that's a documentary about XYZ jazz artist. I'll watch that, and then I would blow my mind, and then I would kind of fall later. So just a fascinating story, so amazingly well done. And I think a great kind of intro, if you're not really into jazz, or maybe you're slightly into it, or want to get into whatever it is, that's called I Called Him Morgan, which is what his wife would like. It's a quote from his wife. So yeah, she just drives down, goes down, and kills him in the actual jazz club in 72. So a crazy sort of story. But then also, he's up there with obviously Miles Davis and Freddie Hubbard and, Clifford Brown and all these other great sort of jazz trumpeters. So yeah, amazing. And I'm trying to remember, I want to say that's on like a Hulu or a Prime or maybe something like that. I think all the things I'm mentioning are all like free streaming. So, free adjacent. So yeah.
Sure.
Free adjacent. Very good.
Cool.
Let's see. Standing in the Shadows of Motown was a great documentary. I forgot all about that one. I agree. That is absolutely fantastic. And I should have pulled some Motown because that one, loved it. Loved it. Watched it with my dad years ago. All right. Who wants to go next?
Well, I was just gonna say, here's the thing is like in terms of like I pulled like a couple of things like in terms of like the full discussion. But to piggyback off of Alex, I guess like for me, like to introduce like what I like in a documentary per se is, when you have the smaller bands that nobody cares about. Even to an extent, not even cares about, but people that are just casual music fans. Like the casual music fan knows who the Beatles are. The casual music fan knows who Elvis is. But honestly, the casual music fan might not even know who Miles Davis is or somebody like that. Because I saw the Birth of the Cool documentary in my independent theater a few years back, which
Isn't
was
that the name of your autobiography, The Birth of the Cool?
It is. It's more like the C-section of the cool, but so this head is so big.
That's what she said.
Yeah, she's a good one.
Move along.
But so like somebody like Miles, because Miles had such a huge catalog of stuff, and like even still like him and Coltrane, we're still getting, these new, lost recordings. Like, these were recorded between this album and this album, or he did, 30 tracks at this one session and it turned into your 4 albums, but we still have 5 more of those songs that are still left that are never released. So like people like that have a lot of mystery to them and have a lot of, interest to even just a casual fan. Because it's a good story. Because I mean, for Miles, like you have somebody who has, he has the sex, drugs, and really rock and roll style. Because Miles is pretty rock and roll. I mean, those rock guys all looked at him and said like, that dude is cool, and like we don't want to mess with him because he could beat us up. So I guess like my thing is, these bands that have that huge appeal, again. Beatles. Let's talk about the Beach Boys because that's the big one right now on Disney. It's been out for about a week this Friday. That story has been told a couple different times in an expansive documentary, like Endless Harmony being the big one. Like what came out in the 90s when Carl was still alive. And a lot of this new documentary pulls archival footage from that documentary. Like you have, the same stories. And so it's not like you're getting this like unreleased things. And that's what we want. We don't want to see, another documentary spliced into a new one. Like it's like, what's the point of doing that? And then seeing the same cast of characters, to see Mike Love now 30 years after that documentary and Al Jardine 30 years after that documentary, telling us the same stories, but now we get to see them telling it in their 80s. It's like, it's cool. And it's like really, really, really nice editing and the footage and like some of the pictures are new and everything, but it's the information that's the same. Just like, we really don't need another Beatles anthology type documentary. Like we don't need to see it with Paul and Ringo in their 80s. Because we're going to hear Paul say, like, I dreamed of yesterday and, scrambled eggs, we don't need to hear that.
But it was good that we had it once because it was a fantastic documentary.
That was. And so was, even like the Rick Rubin thing that he did on Hulu, the black and white, it was called McCartney. Was it 1, 2, 3?
I think
that was cool still. Like they were, separating the audio from all these Beatles tracks. But at the same time, it was the same story. He's like, like Ringo quit during that song, and that's me on the drums. It's like, all right, yeah, we know. But so all I have to say, and I'll share stuff later on, but kind of like just to start with that is like I want to see. And I was talking to my friend Tommy. I bring him up all the time. The Rolling Stones have not had a true deep dive documentary, and most of those characters are still alive. We still have Bill Wyman. We still have Mick Taylor. And then the 3 guys that are still touring, and Daryl Jones, like he would play a big part into that. Their current bassist, Steve Jordan, like all those guys are great to talk about. And then you can pull in Paul and Ringo and, say like, why the Beatles gave them I Want to Be Your Man and like that kind of stuff. We don't really have that. We have all sorts of live footage and live docs of the Stones, but we need like an anthology type situation with them. Like give us a 3-part kind of thing on, Disney or Netflix or whatever. So that's a very bare bones, like intro into like what I'll kind of get into. And again, we can talk open forum, whatever, about whatever.
A few comments in the comment section here. The Wrecking Crew is worth a watch. Yes.
That might make an appearance.
It might. Beyond the Lighted Stage, the Rush doc was good. Yeah. I'm not a giant Rush fan, but I did see that and I thought it was great. I've not heard of this one. Little Richard, I'm Everything from 2023.
I saw that advertised. What station is, what channel is that? What streaming service? That's the thing. Got that out somehow.
Oh, good.
Sony Pictures just picked up the Zeppelin documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin. Oh, that'll be good.
Yep.
Let's see here. The Animals would be a great doc. Yeah. Upside Down, the Creation Records story. I've never heard of that one either. Super story of all the fantastic bands that made and broke Creation Records in the UK. I would totally be into watching that for sure. Vaginal apologizes for the trolls. No worries, man. I mean, I shouldn't say. I mean, I wasn't there, but I'm sure. I'm sure that's the sentiment. Let's see here. Trevor says one that I'm sure won't be mentioned is Industrial Accident, the story of Wax Trax Records. Squaring the Circle, hypnosis documentary.
That'd be interesting.
That's really good. It's great.
The Little Richard doc was on CNN.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. King Crimson as well as the Herb Alpert.
I saw the Herb Alpert one. That one was good. I don't remember much of it, but
the A&M, right? More A&M. I mean, Herb Alpert is the A and A&M, but I don't know if that's the one you mean or if there's a
no. There was a new one about a year or two ago. About Herb Alpert. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
You got something you want to show, Joe? Since you're the guest, I'll go last.
Yeah, I'll quick too as well. Somebody mentioned back a little bit. Badfinger needs a good one. Now,
sorry, I missed that somewhere. Here we go.
No,
I'll be talking about them at length here and later, but please go ahead, Joe.
That does not surprise me.
Lots of links.
All I was going to say is that if you go on Prime, it seems like there is a bunch of like a dude like me made a documentary, right? We pieced together some pictures and some stories and stuff like. There's a lot of that, and there's actually a fairly decent one about Badfinger that I watched a while ago. It's short; it's like 15 minutes, so it's no deep dive. And it's more about, all of the tragedy, but unfortunately, that is a big part of the story with Badfinger. Anyway, I am going to talk about a Canadian trio. Who do you guys think I'm going to talk about?
Well, I know what you want us to say.
Yeah, but it's not. It's
Triumph.
Yeah, it's Triumph.
Yes, it is Triumph. Woohoo!
So,
big Rick Emmett guy.
I saw the discussion. And the Rush one is very good, but I figured someone currently in the bottom left-hand corner may bring up the Rush one. I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd leave that alone. But this is one, and we've talked about it, Rob, you and I, along with our fellow Canadians, about the fact that we wonder how bands have done in the States.
Right.
And so part of this documentary was much like Rush, where there was a DJ somewhere, and I can't remember. I think it was a little further south than the Rush one, because that was Cleveland, wasn't it? Or anyway, someone started playing it down there, and then they just became the biggest band in the world in like North Carolina. That's probably the wrong state, and it's been a while since I've watched it, but it's cool in that respect. There's a lot of good information. I was a huge Triumph fan, and I think that's what I want to get out of a documentary. There's the things we know, and it's some of that little extra story stuff that comes out. And but it was good. It was on, I think it was on Crave for those in Canada. Crave is kind of where we get our HBO and that. And really, bottom line is I just wanted to show this cool disc. So,
That's cool.
There's some colored discs, and then there's some platinum discs, and that one both went platinum and is. But great power pop trio out of Canada for those that are not aware. I think they've got a fair amount of exposure in the world, not to Rush's level, I don't believe, but I think it's fairly safe to say, probably if you're here listening, you know of Triumph. But
they had, at least here, they had the three I would say big hits. Lay It on the Line.
Yeah,
you heard on Classic Rock Radio. I always loved Fight the Good Fight, was huge, and Magic Power. Yeah, those were sort of the three bangers. But I would say, like, if someone asked me, like, right off the top of my head, who I thought the most underrated, not talked about guitarist was ever, I would put Rick Emmett there, 1000%. I mean,
agreed.
Just the man he's still, I know, out doing some solo stuff, but just crazy. They're great.
Yeah,
and they had a guitarist in the 90s that would go on to become a guitar player for a little band called Bon Jovi. Phil X.
It's a good story, right? It goes all the way back, and I think they started without Rick actually, and then kind of like, they started without Neil and Rush, and then got Neil and they became Rush. Kind of the same thing with Triumph, is they started without Rick, and then became Triumph. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Rick's still out there doing it, isn't he? I think
Yeah, he is. Well,
Yeah.
he was a couple years ago for sure. He was playing, kind of that summer
Yeah.
outdoor festival-y tour or whatever. And I haven't seen them. I saw them forever ago. I hadn't seen him recently, but
I
hopefully,
think they played like the casino circuit up here too. I think
yeah, definitely, or at least he did.
he did.
The culmination of the documentary, spoiler alert, is them kind of getting back together for a little bit anyway. But I don't think it was a full-blown tour, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, one of my favorites, and used to put on a hell of a show back in the day. That's mine for now.
In Antonio, Texas, there was a DJ that played them all the time. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right. And it was down there somewhere. I might not have said down there somewhere, but I meant down there somewhere. So is anybody going to bring up ZZ Top?
Not
thought about it because there's a good ZZ Top documentary for sure.
Yeah. And it's got one of my favorite stories. So let me share that quick and then we'll move on. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the fact of they started a show, they opened the curtains, there was one dude standing there. And this was what made me think of it because it was in Texas. They played the whole show to the one dude. Nobody else ever came in. They played it to him. They took an intermission. He went outside, had a smoke with them. They came back and they finished the show, if I remember correctly. Yep. And I can't remember when the documentary was, but he still goes to their shows and he still sees them. So they played to one guy, did a whole show for one guy. I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, what the hell? You're there and you're set up. You might as well get it. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. It is a good documentary too. The biggest little band in Texas, I think is what it's called.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one. All right. I mean, the first thing I have to talk about when it comes to music documentaries, I've talked about it before, so it's no secret that I love this. But to get to Sam's point, there's two things I like about a music documentary. It's kind of one or the other. I either want to find out a cool story about an artist I didn't know about, or I want to hear all the sort of behind the scenes stuff about, a big act that I do know about. And this will probably forever be my favorite music documentary ever, Searching for Sugar Man.
Yep.
I mean, Sixto Rodriguez. I've talked about him before, not a big secret. For those that don't know, Sixto Rodriguez was we'll call him a folk singer in Detroit. Recorded his first album, Cold Fact, in 1972, released on Sussex Records in the U.S., and it bombed bad. Recorded a follow-up called Coming From Reality, also bombed bad. So he said, my music career is done. And he went on to do, construction work or whatever. Unbeknownst to him, somehow this record made its way to Australia and South Africa, and especially in South Africa, resonated with the folks dealing with apartheid. And I guess in the 70s, he was the biggest selling artist in South Africa. It sold Elvis and the Beatles. Unbeknownst to him, never saw the royalty money. And in South Africa, they didn't, obviously pre-internet, because this is the 70s and early 80s. They knew nothing about him because there's not really any liner notes. There's, there's the lyrics on the back. This is the actual South African pressing. So there's no information, and people didn't know anything about him. And so the urban legend spread throughout South Africa that he was in fact dead. And stories circulated that he killed himself on stage. One story was that he shot himself. The other story was that he lit himself on fire on stage. And that was the urban legend. And in the 90s, a couple guys in Johannesburg went on a kind of a fact-finding mission. They just wanted to find out more about this guy. And lo and behold, they actually were someone put them in contact with Rodriguez's daughter. And she's like, no, he's not dead. He's still alive. So he called these two guys, and, to them, it was kind of like they were speaking to this larger than life, guy that they thought was dead. Long story short, he comes to South Africa, tours, and, fills out stadium, arenas, and, then, played music for the last, 20 some odd years of his life. The documentary came out, got even more famous, toured the world many times. I saw him. He was fantastic. But I knew nothing about him when a buddy of mine said, "Have you seen this documentary called Searching for Sugar Man?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "I think you'd like the music. It's a cool story. Check it out." And I do. I love it. It's a great story. Fascinating story, actually. And the way it's constructed in the documentary is entertaining. You don't find out until halfway through that he is, in fact, still alive. And I just love the fact that it launched his career that had failed 30 years earlier. Fantastic story, great documentary, and good music.
I agree with all of those statements.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that would show up.
And I met him very briefly for about 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, quick before I forget, because I'm old and I forget shit. Can we swear on here? Anyway.
Absolutely.
I saw your boys got inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame this year.
They did, along with Tom
pretty cool.
Cochran and Sarah McLachlan.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
pretty good. How is that group of songwriters just getting into the Canadian song? Did it start last year? Anyway,
You'd
I just
almost
thought
think
that
so,
in-
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I read that too, and I went, well, Jim and Greg have been in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame now for over a decade.
Yeah.
And I think so is Tom Cochran. So it's like, how is this just happening now? I don't know. I'd have to
Well,
get
it's like,
more.
was it last year they finally inducted Jerry Lee Lewis into the Country Music Hall of Fame?
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right either.
Nope.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, not to sidetrack, but I saw that earlier. So
Yeah, I saw that.
you can't bring up Blue Rodeo, but someone else can bring up Blue Rodeo, and we can
There
talk
you
about
go.
it. Yeah,
Jim's
Hey,
got a new solo record coming out in about 3 weeks.
cool.
Yeah, I've already ordered it. So let me catch up on a few comments here. Where are we? We are right about here, I think. MTV played those early 80s Triumphs videos nonstop. So did Much Music up here, endlessly.
Yep.
Rush, Triumph, and ZZ Tops are all directed by Sam Dunn. Does Spinal Tap count? Well, I mean, arguably you could say yes, because we're not just we're documentaries and musical biopics. So I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you
Original
could say
documentary.
it kind of fits. Flights 666 to Trevor. Sam Dunn does top-notch films. All right, what's Darren saying here? Another underrated documentary, more backstage with some history, is Yes Years, which followed them on the Union Tour in '91.
I just thought there was a John Anderson announcement today that he's playing a ton of 70s stuff on this current tour coming up for those that are interested.
I don't know who this troll is in the comment, this Jason Arsenault guy. What's his deal?
No fires in northern BC tonight. That's good.
Never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
Did anyone catch Getty and Alex playing at the Gordon Lightfoot tribute? Yes. So Gordon Lightfoot, who passed away last year, sort of the pinnacle of Canadian music. There was a tribute show last week at Massey Hall, which is the most storied concert venue up here. It's kind of our equivalent to the Ryman.
I still can't believe you didn't go. I remember when that happened, I messaged you. I was like, this is right up your alley.
I know it's absolutely right up my alley, and I thought about it. And so it was kind of like the who's who of Canadian music got together. Blue Rodeo was the house band, and Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson from Rush showed up to play with Blue Rodeo, but nobody knew. It was a surprise until they walked out on the stage. I heard about it beforehand because I'm friends with a couple of the Blue Rodeo guys, and they had posted some backstage shots on Facebook, and I thought to myself, fuck, I could have been there. Like, God damn it, why didn't I? And I really kicked myself because I'm like, when's the last time Alex and Geddy have played together? When Neil was still alive, I guess. Like that was a big deal.
Might have been. Yeah. Taylor, didn't they play at Taylor?
They played the Taylor Hawkins tribute.
Right,
Yeah.
there you go. Yes. So that would have been it. Like, the point is, it doesn't happen very often.
No,
So-
exactly.
But like their big announcement was like that they had been jamming together, playing Rush tunes, but they said that, it's just to keep themselves nimble on the instruments, not for a tour.
Yeah, they've been toying around with the idea of maybe making music again, but it would not be as Rush because, as they've said, without Neil, it's not Rush. So
Still got a slap of the bass.
that's right.
Right?
That's right. Alex, what do you got to say?
We will keep it moving right along with documentaries based on super depressing stories. My favorite theme in the documentary.
It's called my YouTube channel.
That's right. So this one came out, I think, 2014, maybe. Yes, about a singer-songwriter who kind of came to some popularity in the 90s, but was really sort of one of not an original, but like I think when people think about like indie songwriting today, this became one of the people that people just thought about. In fact, I think a lot of sort of what we hear today of just again that sort of sad, like whispery vocal with just a guitar. I mean, really, I think became super popular with Elliott Smith.
Yep.
Yep.
So the record here is Either Or. Yes. The documentary itself is called Heaven Adores You. It came out about 10 years ago. And it's just sort of your standard documentary about his life because it's a fascinating life and it's a wild sort of, again, death story of him getting stabbed to death, may or may not have found a suicide note, but also random. It's like him and his girlfriend get in a fight. She goes to take a shower. She comes out and he's got a knife in him or something. Again, they think they might have found like a suicide note, but all the note said was something like, "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." And then apparently like the autopsy did not rule out a homicide. So, yeah, Darren, no, for sure. Say Yes is just an amazing. Now, a lot of people, I think, I mean, I'll say this, right? Like, I love Elliott Smith, but this is not happy. He is not a happy songwriter. I mean, this is some pretty emotional, messed up stuff. But I think a lot of people, if you're not familiar with just the name Elliott Smith, he became very popular in a lot of independent films. So, like, he's all over Good Will Hunting. In fact, a lot of the music played in Good Will Hunting is Elliott Smith. And the other sort of big pop cultural scene is so on this record specifically, I think maybe one of his biggest songs is called Between the Bars. And this was the song, if anybody's ever seen the Royal Tenenbaums, when Luke Wilson's character is having a little bit of an emotional breakdown experience in the bath. It's a pretty like difficult scene to watch. But of course, Elliott Smith Between the Bars is playing. So yeah, kind of wild story. I forget how many records he released, maybe 6 or 7. I think he died in 2003-ish. And again, a complete sort of mystery surrounding his death, whether it was him stabbing himself, somebody else, killing him, if his girlfriend was involved, who knows? But really sad story, and the music reflects that. But yeah, and definitely sort of outside of what I would normally show, I guess. But that's, again, the whole point that I'm sort of, my theme with this episode tonight is talking about some records and music that I don't really show as much. So yeah, Elliott Smith, Heaven Adores You is the name of the documentary. And yeah, kind of wild story, but good stuff.
So is the documentary focused mostly on the mystery of his passing? Or is it
no, not necessarily. No, it's his whole sort of life. But the documentary itself is done in like a very like independent film sort of way. It's like a very like a lot of hand cam type stuff, a lot of that type of stuff. So, but it's not done by like Sony or anything like that. So
well, there was because there was the one similar, I guess you could say, but was a little the more of the conspiracy that Courtney killed Kurt, right? Or had Kurt killed. Like there's sure. That one that I don't know if it's similar to that or puts you in the mind of that, but I think Sam asked the question and it doesn't sound like that's the case. Where that one, if I remember correctly, I watched it a while ago now, was more like people trying to prove that it was Courtney that had a hand in that, Cobain didn't kill himself, that Courtney had him, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's not, you're saying that's not what this one's like. It's not necessarily.
No, I mean, it's really more of a documentary on him and his life, and then obviously they touch on his death, but it's not like full. It's not a documentary on his death sort of thing. So
cool.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah, watch that finger there. So
I'm gonna tickle you, Sam.
yeah, it's coming from below. Somebody had mentioned earlier, and I'll just go ahead and show it just to just get it out of the way. And Rob, you kind of mentioned like in the intro, like documentaries that we go back to. This is a documentary that I watch like a movie fairly regularly. I mean, to me, it's just very, very entertaining. It's very well done. Came out in 2015, and it's the Wrecking Crew documentary.
Yeah.
And it was done originally by the son of Tommy Tedesco, who was a guitar player for the Wrecking Crew. He had just recently passed away, and his son wanted to do a tribute to him. And so then he started getting, obviously like Hal Blaine and Carol Kay to talk about Tommy. And then more people started wanting to talk. Like, they had archival things about from Glenn Campbell before he had his dementia, his Alzheimer's diagnosis. And then you started getting people like Mickey Dolenz and Brian Wilson and Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas, several members of the Monkees. So like you had all these people that had an affiliation with the Wrecking Crew. And obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, the session players in the 60s in LA that played a lot on Capitol Records. They're essentially the house band for Capitol Records. They played with Sinatra, Simon and Garfunkel. They played with, they were the musicians essentially behind Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Again, the individual members did their own thing. Leon Russell, who ended up having his own great solo career. Again, Glenn Campbell had a solo career because of the Wrecking Crew. They played on all the Phil Spector records. And this is just a fantastic documentary. And there are a few scenes that are, again, more archival. Like the Glenn Campbell stuff is really from like the earlier 2000s. Some of the Brian Wilson stuff is a little earlier. But they're all talking about, like how Blaine would hit the drums, how there would be, 3 people on bass, like there'd be an electric bass and 2 stand-up basses, or, a bass on somebody on the bow, and getting that wall of sound feel, because, obviously a lot of people didn't know that, like, that's not Dennis Wilson playing on Pet Sounds. And that's not, that's not, Chris Hillman playing bass on the single version of Mr. Tambourine Man, because, they played with the Byrds before they released their first album. And then the Byrds kind of took control and did their thing from there on in. But it's just absolutely fantastic. It makes you want to go back and listen to those records, to those 45s. And I think so much of this record, of this DVD. I do think there is a soundtrack out there, and I think you can get this. I think it's on Prime, or at least it was for a bit. But it is. You can find it online. I think it was on YouTube for a bit. But I've seen this documentary probably 7 or 8 times, and I never get tired of it. This has all sorts of bonus interviews and clips with, specific members of the Wrecking Crew that are saying, like, like, this is how I came up with the idea of, Hawaii Five-0, and like they start playing it, or like the Mission Impossible theme from the TV show. And, there's a really funny scene where they show Tommy Tedesco. He's giving like a talk at a music like seminar for a college or something, and he's holding a classical guitar, and he said, they wanted me to play, this is what they wanted me to sound like if they were showing a scene of the desert. And so then he played this little, kind of Arabic sounding guitar lick, and then he said, this was what they wanted me to play when there was a scene in a Western, and then he plays the exact same lick. Like that he would use on like different movies and soundtracks and things. But absolute killer documentary. This is what a documentary should be. I think this is like one of those like gold standards of a documentary, because you have a whole cast of characters who don't have egos about their band, because they're giving all the credit to the Wrecking Crew, who went uncredited on all those records. Like, you don't see the Beach Boys Pet Sounds and see Hal Blaine on drums, at least on those like original pressings. Some of that was rectified later on, but anyway, I could talk a lot about this one. To me, this is like, if I was picking favorite music documentaries, this would probably be it. Again, because it plays like a movie. It's incredibly fascinating, and it was a time capsule, because so many of these people are now gone. I mean, Glenn Campbell's gone, Hal Blaine is gone, Brian Wilson obviously has dementia. So it's really a neat little time capsule with all those 60s artists, and it's just really, really fascinating. So if you haven't seen this for whatever reason, you have to watch it. The Wrecking Crew. So
That's good. I want to mention this comment. Speaking of Glenn Campbell and the Wrecking Crew.
oh yeah,
I'll Be Me. That is a great
that's a rough one.
documentary. It's a tough one because I felt like they, his daughters who were kind of, looking after him. They were, I think it was one of them or whatever, kind of trying to tread the line of giving him the last tour, but it got to the point where it almost felt like they were dragging him out to do it. You know what I mean? Like it went from being, at least to me, it felt like something that he wanted to do to the point where he didn't know what he was doing and they were still forcing him to finish the tour. And it kind of felt like maybe they should have canceled it halfway through. I mean, that was just my take on it. It was sad to watch, though.
But then, I mean, the other thing of it was like they wanted to shed light on Alzheimer's, and they wanted to show the nitty gritty of it and like what it looks like in terms of the process going to the doctors and
that's a good point,
and that sort of thing. Because he's kind of like John Fogerty, like his kids are in the band, like they were the band. His daughter played banjo, and
I think,
his son played guitar, and someone was on drums. And my grandparents actually saw that tour. I'm not sure how far into it, but they said what their show was great. They said there was one time where he kind of like was like, what song is this? And he said, oh yeah, and then he just ripped right into it.
What I found remarkable though is he'd forget the lyrics, but man, even when he forgot the lyrics, could he play? Oh my God, what an incredible!
And at that point, he was 73, 74.
Yeah, just unbelievable. I probably got to get caught up on a few here. Where am I? I think we're about somewhere around here, I guess. Salad Days, a decade of punk. Really good doc on the DC punk scene. Lots of focus on Discord's records, acts like Minor Threat. I'm not a punk guy, so I don't know much about that. But Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll is a great Chuck Berry documentary. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy named Racer Records says, I agree.
Yeah.
Chicago, Ted Cathy Experience, great too. But an underrated guitarist. You can find it on Tubi.
Yeah, I've seen that one, I think once a few years back.
Already had that. Where are we here? Punk Doc. You weren't there. History of Chicago Punk. We're getting deep into the obscure documentaries. That's good. I could do this all night. Well, we're only here till 10, so
Yeah.
Tedesco Jr. made the Immediate Family doc that became the second Wrecking Crew in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, it's like Leland Sklar and those guys that played with Jackson Brown.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad I'm not the only one that took it that way. But I guess to Sam's point, it did sort of shine a spotlight on kind of what living with Alzheimer's and dementia is. So good, bad, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy to say. The Filth and the Fury is a brilliant documentary about the Sex Pistols. Lots of interviews with the band members. Good time capsule of the 70s UK punk scene. Who's this fella? Music Talk with John. We're not freaks of nature. We're nerds talking about records. So, Joe, you got something you want to show?
I do. Just the mention of the Sex Pistols. We've talked mostly about documentaries. When you sent me the text about coming on, you also mentioned biopics.
Yes, absolutely. By all means.
That's not where I'm going, but there was a pretty decent one about the Sex Pistols. I thought it was okay. I thought they did a pretty decent job. Johnny Rotten would disagree, but Johnny Rotten disagrees with The Sky is Blue, I think. So whatever. But I didn't mind it. I thought it was well done. I didn't know that Chrissie Hynde was such a big part of the Sex Pistols or was such a big part of that at the time. So that was kind of cool. I thought they did that well. Anyway, not to sabotage the show, but I want to talk about the Beastie Boys because that was a pretty good one.
It's a good joke. That's a good joke, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Been working on that since this afternoon.
Maybe I got a drum roll. Let me see if I don't have a drum. I got a drum roll, but I don't have the.
How about a quack? Give me the quack. I'll take the quack.
You want the quack?
No, not the quack.
Not the quack. Here it comes. Here we go. There you go.
That's kind of drum roll like. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, Apple TV a couple years ago now, and I was a big fan. Am a big fan. Like back to obviously the start and the little more rock and roll. Let's have some fun and cause some shit kind of Beastie Boys stuff. That certainly evolved into a lot more as they went along. And there's a time frame where they actually wanted to kind of shy away from that, from this album, and fight for your right and things like that when they got into Sabotage and when they got into the other stuff. But pretty good. Went back, wasn't too in depth, but still a lot of good information, and I enjoyed it. And like I said, just a great album, great band, and check your head if you haven't seen it.
It was funny. I was downtown today for another reason, but I slipped in my record store just to see if they had new arrivals, and it looked like somebody had dropped off a bunch of Beastie Boys, new pressings. Like I saw Hot Sauce Committee, I saw License to Ill was there. There was another one there that I can't remember. It wasn't Paul's Boutique, but somebody obviously had a Beastie Boys collection that they had pawned off. So
you didn't buy all of them though, Sam?
no, I did not buy a thing.
Music. Are we going to have a honorable mentions at the end? Because as I'm looking, I think of stuff that I don't have in my stack, but I want to talk about, which I can either do now or wait till the end, whatever you like. It's your turn.
Go pull it. It's just a free for all tonight. So.
I saw Alice Cooper mentioned, and there's Supermensch, which is about his agent, right? His and Anne Murray's agent, Supermensch, the one that Mike Myers did. So, not necessarily a music documentary, but still involved. What's his name? Someone who's not old and senile. Remember Supermensch's name, his agent. He was the agent for both Alice Cooper and someone will remember. Vance will remember. And Anne Murray, and he put them together in a lot of promo pictures early because he wanted to get Anne Murray a little more notoriety in that. But it was pretty good. There's one that's out there that's pretty good. Shep Gordon, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Trevor. Glad someone could help me out. It's good. Watch that one. I liked it.
All right, Joe, you and I have a question.
Okay.
Aaron wants us to be honest. How do we feel about the Tragically Hip and BNL? You go first.
Well, I'm a hip fan. Along the way, I'm a hip fan now 100%. Along the way, for me, album to album, it changed. Sometimes I really liked them, and sometimes it was, that's not so good. And then I really liked them again. I'm not sure why that was, because the style really didn't differ a whole bunch. But from Up to Here to Road Apples, I liked them. I didn't like them, and then they got me back in that. So I would say I'm a fairly substantial Tragically Hip fan. And Bare Naked Ladies are fun and have some really, really good music. Everybody knows One Week because they play it to death. But, stuff like The Old Apartment, again, they play that one quite a bit. But they've got some really good stuff that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. And Steven is out. He is actually coming to Regina. He's coming to the summer concert by the lake type of thing. So he's out.
Coming by himself, or is he bringing the Trans-Canada Highwaymen?
Yeah, no, he's coming by himself, but they were just here. And that is, I'm not sure why I didn't go to that one. Much like you didn't go to the Massey Hall thing. I don't know why I didn't go to those guys, because the Odds and the Bare Naked Ladies and Sloan and all of that good stuff. But anyway, so I'm a Bare Naked Ladies fan. Again, there's lots of stuff that I think you can write them off a little bit. Again, One Week, catchy song, great song, but there's a lot of other Bare Naked Ladies that are pretty good.
We're not talking about the same kind, I think.
We're not. That's my cat.
All right, so here's my take on this. And as one, as the self-proclaimed ambassador of Canadian music, as I like to call myself, or the Ben Rankins of Canada, I don't like the Tragically Hip, and that is a very controversial opinion, and I am absolutely in the minority. Here's the thing. I have the absolute utmost respect for the Tragically Hip. I don't think there is a band that better typifies the Canadian sound and the Canadian experience and all of that. And I absolutely revere them for that. Their actual music, I do not like it. I cannot stand Gord Downey's voice. May he rest in peace. I don't like it. There's not a single hip song that I like. And I know that's terrible of me to say.
Is it the lyrics? Is that
no? I can't stand Gord Downey's voice. That's all it is. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And I know that's horrible to speak of the dead and whatever, but I just can't stand his voice. I've never liked it. As for the Bare Naked Ladies, I think they're a joke, but let me expand on that. I have no respect for the Bare Naked Ladies. I think they're a farce. Now, back in the day when Stephen Page was in the band, that story about how they're just a bunch of guys and they crammed into the booth at Speaker's Corner and, how they became what they became. That's an incredible story. And I like a few of the early stuff. Gordon, great album. But the stuff later on, they never grew up and they're still making stupid, goofy songs like they're 17 years old. And I can't do it. I've seen them live in concert. I didn't go for them. I went because my friend was playing in the opener, but I can't do them either. Terrible of me to say that, but you wanted honesty. So there's honesty. Okay. I'm going to show something and then I'll get caught up on some comments. In the vein of documentaries du jour, the ones that are kind of making the rounds right now, I know this is Sam's favorite. I thoroughly enjoyed the new Bon Jovi documentary. I thought it was fantastic.
Yep.
For a few reasons. The way that it's done is, I think it's 4 episodes, Sam?
Four parts, yeah.
4. And each one sort of starts with John today, and today meaning within sort of the last 4 years, and him telling the story of his vocal troubles and admitting, I lost my voice. I couldn't sing anymore. And I had to get the tour finished. And then I had to find ways to get my voice back. And he goes through the surgeon. So each episode starts with that. And then it goes back into the past and works its way up through the present. Very, very well done. Great story. And what I find interesting about it is obviously the elephant in the room is Richie Sambora's departure in 2013. And you kind of go, I wonder how they're going to address that. And I think they did it really well because John and the other guys in the band, David and Tico, they don't say anything bad. They say, listen, he was supposed to get on a private jet to fly out to Calgary to play the show, and he called us that day and said, I'm not coming. And he just stopped showing up. They didn't say anything bad about him. And Richie was interviewed, and Richie was able to say whatever he wanted to say. And now Richie's coming out in the press going, John skewed the perspective of the documentary, and I wasn't painted in a very good picture. Fuck off, John. Or fuck off, Richie. You're full of shit. You had your opportunity to say what you wanted to say. No one said anything bad about you, but at the end of the day, you didn't show up for work. And then you decided to quit the band. You were replaced. Move on, pal. I mean, I'm getting sick of Richie bitching and moaning in the media for the last month. But I thought it was handled with class. The story was great. It was cool to hear, John from the very beginning watching Bruce Springsteen in these bars in Asbury Park, New Jersey, when he was just a kid. And now the two of them are best friends in real life. And I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining documentary, and I really, really enjoyed it.
I agree. I have a question that might be I don't know if it's controversial. If Richie Sambora wasn't in that band, would it have been a lot of a different band, other than the fact that I know more now how much more he wrote in that participant and participated that way? I don't know. To me, he wasn't like an Angus as the guitar player or a Keith Richards as the guitar player. Now, again, a little more respect for him, knowing how much more he participated after watching the documentary. But before that, I could have cared less whether Richie Sambora was in the band or not. I don't know. Is that just me?
Well, I mean, I don't think they would have been what they became without him, because I think he was as integral to the songwriting process as John was, right? I mean, I kind of have the perception that it's 50-50, right?
Yeah,
In terms of,
And I'm more hip to that, for lack of the proper term, now. I didn't know that. I guess I didn't take the time to know that.
in terms of the onstage performance, Phil X is a vastly superior guitar player to Richie Sambora. I'm sorry, but he is. Does it make a difference nowadays on stage? I don't think so. I think they sound, from the performances we've seen in the last 11 years, I think they seem to be great on stage. John's vocal issues aside. So,
Right.
I mean, Richie, yeah. I mean, I think I'm not a Bon Jovi expert like Sam, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't have been what they were without Richie. But I think they've evolved into something else without him that I think will continue to be successful. I'm excited to hear the new album next month, and hopefully, John has said in several interviews he's fine to sing on the album, but his level of acceptable is, he goes, I need to be able to sing 2 hours a night, 4 nights a week, and I'm not quite there yet. If I can't do it, we're not going to tour. But he's working on it, and he's getting there, and hopefully he does, because I've not seen them, and I really, really want to.
And all to what Rob's saying. First of all, hello, DJ Trish. Thanks for stopping by. But they did release a single a couple weeks ago, and it sounded pretty good for Bon Jovi standards. I mean, it's not my thing, but it sounded like Bon Jovi versus, like, he put out a couple of like COVID singles that weren't good.
Right.
And you could hear his voice really, and like I saw him like on a couple of like telethons kind of things, like, you know, money toward, New York and New Jersey when they were really going through a lot of the health crisis in 2020. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I thought it was well done. I just thought it was interesting as a music documentary. And again, I'm not a Bon Jovi fan. I watched it. I really got enjoyment out of it. So that's just my kind of tag to what your spot was there, Rob.
Yep. Let me just get caught up on a few comments here. John says they used to start gigs with this old apartment.
That's where the gigs took place, John.
There you go.
Yeah.
Devin is a huge Hip fan. Rob, oh my God, you and I are brothers for life as musicians. So I take it you're not a Hip fan either. Okay. Oh my God. Well, you're welcome. I don't like the tragically. Fuck off, John. There's other things in the world besides Taylor Swift. I mean, not much, but
Susanna.
Let's see what else here. Gord Downey's a great lyricist, but his voice sounds like a goat. I hate to say it, but yeah, he kind of does. They're not taking away from his death because he's a great songwriter. For those that don't know, Gord Downey was the front man of the Tragically Hip, and he died of brain cancer. And they did one last show in Kingston, Ontario, which was their hometown. And it was televised nationwide, and it was a big thing. And it was terrible to see what Gord went through. So all respect to the late Gord Downey, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the voice. To me, I felt like Sambora is really a douche. Well, he's certainly coming off like a douche nowadays and everything that he's saying in the press. Because at one point one day he'll say, they didn't paint me fairly in the documentary. And then the very next day he'll be like, but I'm open to a reunion. Well, why should you get a reunion, jackass? You bailed in the middle of a tour. Fuck you. I'm not a Richie Sambora fan, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's shocking. Echo in the Canyon was a good documentary. I haven't seen that, but I want to see it.
Very good.
Is it good?
Very good.
I could talk about it here in a second.
DJ Trish, hello. John Bon Jovi was a Springsteen mimic. I don't know. He's not a Springsteen mimic. Not even close. Not even close.
Springsteen was his guy. Springsteen was God to those guys.
Yes.
I don't want to speak for John. I think the idea was he obviously doesn't sound like him, but this sort of sense of I represent blue collar, working, rusty New Jersey.
Yeah, but Bon Jovi does not. Bon Jovi never represented working class New Jersey. They were a hair metal friggin' glam sort of band. I mean, Springsteen was kind of the role model, right? I mean, he's the guy that made it out of Jersey and made it big and did represent, but I don't know that.
Well,
Yeah.
him and Southside Johnny and all of that at that point, right? Like,
Yeah.
but
it's crazy to hear that John Bon Jovi and Bruce are fans or friends, I should say. And when John was going through the vocal thing, Bruce would come and pick him up in the car, and they'd leave their phones behind, and they'd just go for like a couple-hour drive, just the two of them hanging out in the car. He said one time they were driving through whatever the hell city it was in Jersey, and they were at a stoplight, and there were kids collecting, like high school kids collecting for some charity or something. So John rolls down the window to leave a donation. And the kid bends over to get it, and he sees John Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen in the car. Like, wouldn't you shit a brick? I mean, that would be, what do you do? Like, that's crazy.
You said, this is all you're going to give me, old man?
yeah,
Right? Yeah, exactly. Speaking of documentary, there's a documentary about the comeback of cassettes.
I'll tape it.
I don't get the cassette thing. Let's see. Hello. The single sounded auto-tuned to hell. Maybe a little bit. I don't know if it's auto-tuned. Maybe it pitch corrected a little bit, but John's not a fan. That's okay. Do a walk and talk about it, John. The Shania Twain doc was really good. I didn't even know they made one. Any thoughts on the Dirt film? Have you guys seen it?
No.
yeah, it's
What do
okay.
you think, Joe?
I've not. I just there's not a whole lot of artists that I hate. In fact, I strongly position myself as someone who hates people who just post videos about things they hate. But I hate Motley Crue. And any artist that is more about the tabloids and the stupid stories than they are about the music gets no respect for me. And they're the same douchebags today that they were in 1984. So
I love that. You need some Concert Buddy oven mitts for that hot take, but I love it.
oh boy.
Dio, Dreamers Never Die. Saw it in the theater, nothing hearing a room full of metalheads with sniffles wiping tears in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who love that, Trevor.
Look who's here. 8 Vinyl Low.
Perfect timing.
Welcome. John says, great job with Pearl Jam concerts video. Oh, John, stop. My favorite Bon Jovi documentary is when Conan O'Brien and Triumph were making fun of it. Yeah, that was a funny skit. All I can say, shot by Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon is good. Yeah, I've seen part of it.
Haven't seen that one.
That's a sad story. Maybe all the hairspray is affecting his brain. I like that. 2007 Joy Division documentary is really well done. Interviews with all the band members, memory stories from Ian Curtis's wife, too. Tons of live footage. Such a fascinating band. Any Joy Division fans among us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, their story is just crazy. I mean, yeah.
I knew what you meant. All right. Anyone else got something to share? What about we've done a lot of docs. What about any music biopics?
Who?
Oh, I have a few more things. And I'll go quick here just because, this is interesting because, you all can probably relate to this. Sam, you and I were talking about this yesterday, actually. Like, as collectors and as like like content creators on YouTube, like we
don't be modest. You're a social media influencer.
It's true. I influence people to never want to do anything like this. But I
just about spit my water on my lap.
The reality is that like we like to perceive ourselves as like these, content experts, right? Like we are the nerds.
We're full of shit, is what
we are. The collectors. We are the audiophiles. We are the people. And the reality is that we represent like less than 1% of fucking fans of music. And so I say all of that because of us and because of the people in the comments, and we love them all, right? We like and we love a lot of like bands or artists or records that the vast majority of people are just like, what? Who is that? What is that? And so that's the sort of intro to this bit, because this is a band that they've become they're the band's band. They are the musician's band. The casual person has no idea who these people are. The vinyl collectors do. People who are in bands today do. They all cite all these people and all the different things. But truthfully, this was somebody, I had no idea who this band was until Counting Crows did a covers album back in the 2010 or so. And it had a song on there by a band called Big Star. So documentary, and the documentary I think is still on a bunch of all the stuff. It's called Nothing Can Hurt Me, came out several years ago.
Yep.
But again, like, this is one of these bands that these two albums, which are both just amazing, so good in so many ways, it's just not, they sold like trash upon release. They were on Ardent Records out of Memphis. It was distributed by Stax. They had like a terrible distribution deal. It's a whole thing. But my thing is, like, if you just want a perfect documentary that sort of summarizes their story, their struggles, why they were so great, all those different things, I think it's great. Again, especially because they're just not a band that people outside of quote unquote the know about. You know what I mean? And going back again to my original point of, like, we don't, like, what more do we need to know about the Stones? You know what I mean? Like, that's always been my sort of thing. So yeah, I thought Big Star doc was great. Story of Chris Bell, he's 27 Club. Again, just sort of heartbreaking story there too. There's only one person left of Big Star right now, Jody Stevens, their drummer. So, I just that's an amazing doc. And if you want to learn more and just, again, their story, and it's a heartbreaking story. And it's, these records now, people look back at them and they're like, oh my gosh, this is critical acclaim. And you're like, yeah, but at the time, like 10,000 people bought it, if that. And originals of these fetch absurd doll hairs. I mean, absurd money.
It's like Nate Drake stuff. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely, right? Because there's just none of them. So, yeah, it's called Nothing Can Hurt Me. Amazing, great. I encourage anybody to watch it. Great stuff with Big Star.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, and my friend Tommy was the one who pushed me to watch that documentary, and it was really good. And Alex, you were kind of the one. I think you showed that Radio City that it was on Craft. I hadn't realized. I had the Big Star, #1 record. It was one of like the RSD Essentials that came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then I have the other one because of your channel. But good pick. So for me, I mean, Rob, you mentioned earlier kind of moving into biopics. I mean, I have other documentaries here too that I could talk about. And I will if we have time. Again, this goes into kind of like the original, inception of this chat tonight. And, we were talking about, what are the pros and cons of the Beach Boys doc? And Rob, I don't know. Did you see the new Beach Boys doc yet?
I haven't yet. I gotta get around to it this week.
Okay. So, I mean, to me, my favorite biopic ever is this one, is Love and Mercy. And I
was going to mention that because I love it.
Yeah, and Alex and I talked about this some yesterday, kind of teasing tonight's chat. But again, for those that don't know, you have John Cusack and Paul Dano playing two different versions of Brian. You have Brian in 1966, 67, and then you have Brian in like 86 through like 1990 with John Cusack. And again, John Cusack looks nothing like Brian Wilson. Paul Dano takes on the look and the feel. Cusack is more about the feel of Brian Wilson. And you have the Brian Wilson who is creating, pet sounds and then goes into Smile and then just completely collapses, has no idea what is going on in his life. His marriage to his first wife, Marilyn, is kind of, on the fritz. His relationship with Mike Love is all over the place, and that's shown in that part of the movie. And then you have the 80s story, which again, it goes back and forth. It's not like half and half, it's back and forth. And you have, Brian Wilson meeting his wife, Melinda Ledbetter, who's played by Elizabeth Banks. And then you have Paul Giamatti playing Dr. Eugene Landy, who was like the psychiatrist to the stars, is kind of how he advertised himself, and was obviously very abusive to Brian. He took away a lot of Brian's things. He did a lot of good for Brian. I mean, he had Brian lose a ton of weight that was unhealthy. But at the same time, he put Brian on a ton of sedatives, a ton of pills that were probably not prescription. They were prescribed by Landy, but they weren't what he should have been taking. He was repressing his appetite. He was taking away his brothers. Like, he couldn't be seen with the Beach Boys anymore. And it's just a really, really sad story with a happy ending, which is not, it's not a spoiler or anything, because Brian was able to go back out and tour up until just 2019 or so. But Paul Dano nails it as young Brian. Very sensitive personality. But you also get, great visuals. It shows Brian taking acid for the first time and how that affected him moving into good vibrations and working with that, with the sand box in his house in Los Angeles. But to me, this is just really well done. I mean, there's some timeline blurring in terms of like how fast things happen. Like, there's some things that are missing. Like, obviously they don't talk about, Glenn Campbell joining the Beach Boys for a few months. Guys like Bruce Johnston and Al are really just background characters. They don't have any kind of deep part into this. Brian and Carl and Mike and Dennis kind of are the stars of the Beach Boys for this movie. But it's really, really well done. Beautiful color, really cool music in the background, and I just think this is really well done. Again, there are music biopics out there. There have been some about the Beach Boys that are like they were made for TV. I know there was one about the Doors that was made for TV, but to me, this one is it's really well done, because it merges a lot of fact into it. It's not, they don't really say like, let's throw this random thing in that never happened, but it would make for a good movie. As far as I know, most of this is pretty accurate in terms of, how the events happened. So this is really, really good stuff.
I remember, Sam, I don't think I told you the story, but I remember distinctly in 2015, I think it came out in 15, I was doing a summer internship at Stanford. And because I think that had a pretty limited theater run, which is, fascinating given the cast, right? I mean, an insane cast, but a really limited theater run. But of course, for anybody, familiar with California, Stanford University's, adjacent / in the town of Palo Alto. And so there's like this old historic theater, and they were playing it. And I went to the movie by myself, and I was in tears. I loved it so much. Yeah. I went back the next day to see it again. I was it was so good and so perfect, both from a, I think I was telling you yesterday, right? Like, I went into that just being like, oh, like the Beach Boys, and I've heard Brian Wilson's smart, Yeah. I heard he's creative. But I was blown away, obviously, just with, all the info. And again, like, here it's pretty accurate. A lot of those scenes, especially with like Dr. Landy, were like,
it's tough.
No, these were real, and it's a very emotional movie. And I think especially to, not to go down this path, but I think especially to like, you work with people who have mental health challenges and all those different things. Like, there's so much in there that is just, it blew me away. So, I mean, not to just keep on harping on it, but if people have not seen it, it's just one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah. And I mentioned too, like, to me, and I think you agree with this, it was the movie that was the turning of the tide for me, with no pun intended with that tide reference. But it made me
have to do with laundry soap.
Okay. We'll gain some ground here. But it made me more of a that was the movie that made me a Brian Wilson fan above the Beach Boys. Yeah. And then it caused me to read, the Mike Love autobiography. It caused me to read the Brian Wilson book that came out a couple years later, like the official Brian Wilson autobiography, because there was one that came out in the late 80s that was essentially ghostwritten by Eugene Landy to tell the story. So I think that one was called "Wouldn't It Be Nice?" I think is the name of that book, and it's
everybody who played the role in that movie played it perfectly. The Giamatti
man,
was just brilliant. That scene towards the end where he's banging on that window at the car dealership. Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
So quick story you might appreciate, Sam. So when that came out, they screened it at TIFF, which is the Toronto International Film Festival. And Brian and his wife were there for the screening. My boss at the time was there. And my boss goes in and sits down. And who's sitting right in the seat right behind him?
Dr.
Ryan
Landy.
Wilson.
Oh.
Ryan Wilson. And I said to my boss, please tell me you said hi. You shook the man's hand, something. He goes, no, I didn't want to bother him. I looked at my boss and I went, you are a fucking idiot. And we had a laugh about it because I'm like, I'm sure if you just said, hey, Mr. Wilson, pleasure to meet you, like your music, great movie, he would have been like, thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's it.
I mean, that's all I would have done. I mean, I don't think I could say any more than that because I'd probably be too starstruck. But God damn it, man, how often do you get that opportunity?
When you said that God only knows, did you mean that? It could have been his Chris Farley, Paul McCartney.
When you were greasy lying in bed, was that cool?
Is that?
All right, I'm way behind in some comments here. So where are we here?
When Dr. Landy said you couldn't eat that cheeseburger, did you want to eat it anyway?
Can I just mute your mic for a minute or two here? Jesus.
That's okay. I got to pee anyway.
Thanks for sharing. Can you go for me while you're doing it?
Oh, that's so good.
All right. I think we're somewhere around here. I answered this in the comments. Joe, Darren wants to know what we think of Pursuit of Happiness, Our Lady Peace, I Mother Earth, and Saga.
I can do it quick. Pursuit of Happiness, very good. Never had a chance to see him. Would like to. Mo Berg's out, one of the Canadian highwaymen. Our Lady Peace, I hadn't seen him. Then I saw him twice in 6 months. Pretty decent. I Mother Earth, haven't ever seen. A fan to a certain extent, not huge. Saga is way up there in my books. I had seen them back in the day. They're on that little Canadian summer tour thing. It's still a couple of the main guys for sure. He still sounds fantastic. If you get a chance, go and see him. But Worlds Away is probably in my top 20 albums anyway. And I think in the top 20 albums is pretty good at this point. So yeah, there you go. That's the quick answer for me.
My answer was Pursuit of Happiness. Yes. Everyone else, meh. So
there you go.
Tim, I talked about Rodriguez off the top. So if you watch this back, you'll see me talk about Rodriguez earlier on.
The Sparks one is good. He mentions the Sparks documentary. And I am a little familiar with, but not that familiar with. But regardless of that, it was still a pretty good documentary to watch. Now I'm more familiar with them, which is what you want, I guess, out of a documentary.
Allegedly, the worst biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, yeah, they took by all accounts, took a lot of creative license and, mixed a few things. I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I mean,
I thought Rami was actually really good.
I thought it was really good.
I love how they recreated the Live Aid performance. I thought they did really well there.
Yeah.
But I think, sorry to jump in, but I think what hurt it, and again, Sam and I were talking about this yesterday, is that a lot of these times, these biopics or documentaries, it's like, who's the documentary or the biopic for? If it's for like the casual music fan that's like, oh, I like We Will Rock You and Bohemian Rhapsody, you know what I mean? Like, that's one thing. But I think what hurt Bohemian Rhapsody was that it was released around the same-ish time as Rocket Man.
Yeah.
And the big complaint with Bohemian Rhapsody was they're like, no, give us real Freddie. Like, give us the dirty, nasty ass, slimy party animal Freddie, because that was what so many people got with Rocket Man. Like, they got like the NC-17 version of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what some people were thinking, instead of like more of the family affair that was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Sure.
Yeah. And they made, like, the Rocket Man thing was too, like, that was made almost like you went into that knowing that a lot of it was fantasy, like that it was dreamlike, and like that's how Elton remembered it because he was on so many drugs.
Yeah.
Sure. You got a movie to share, Joe?
I do. Actually, I just watched the other night, I Walked the Line, and I thought, and you and I talked a little bit about that on our soundtracks that is coming up, and
Just
that's what made me go and watch it again.
Just to tease everybody, Joe and I recorded an episode for the Vinyl Community Podcasts, which will be up on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts on Monday, where Joe and I talk about soundtracks. The video will be up on my channel Sunday. So Walk the Line, yeah.
Which made me go and watch it again. It falls into the category, if we can categorize biopics, right? Like we just talked about the Queen, Freddie Mercury one. We talked about the Elton one and how it was. I remembered it a little different after watching the other night. Really, the Johnny Cash was not so much about him as much as it was a love story between him and June, right? I mean, yes. I knew that, but it just reminded me of it again watching it. And the two of them were so fantastic. Reese was unbelievable. I mean, Joaquin was great, but Reese, I think Reese was that movie a little bit more, and she just did such a fantastic job. So I also have one that I would like to see and I don't know if I want to see it as a really good documentary or a biopic, because they could get it right as a biopic. I think it'd be pretty cool. And they always talked about it on Entourage, because what's his name was supposed to be or wanted to do the Ramones biopic. And I think someone should do that. And I think it would be great as a documentary, because to be honest, I don't know a hell of a lot about the Ramones. I mean, I know that they were somewhat manufactured, and I know they're not all actually brothers. I know that much. But I don't know. I'd kind of like to see it as a biopic. We'll see. The CBGB one is a good movie. Again, I don't know if it's a good movie, but it's kind of cool. Again, kind of an offshoot of biopics. But obviously, they were a big part of that. But CBGB, Country, Bluegrass, and other gourmanders. I can't remember what the hell.
Country, Bluegrass, and Blues, and other music for uplifting gourmanders.
Gourmanders. There you go. Attaboy. Good job. So yeah, there's mine, not one that is, but one that I would like to see, and I'd like to see someone do a decent job of the Ramones. And I don't know if it's in the works. And maybe it's talked about before. Like I say, the only time I ever remember hearing about it is because in Entourage, What's His Lips wanted to do it, and they never did it. But so somebody do it. There's a suggestion out in the world. Someone do a Ramones biopic. Do it right, though.
Here you go. To tread on the soundtrack thing that will be in mine and Joe's podcast episode, my favorite music biopic, is Backbeat, about the Beatles in Hamburg. It's outstanding. And again, this is, Joe made the point about Walk the Line. It's not so much about the music. It's about the love story between Johnny Cash and June Carter, set against the backdrop of John's music career. And Backbeat is not so much about the Beatles in Hamburg as it is about the relationship between John and Stu Sutcliffe, and to a lesser degree, Astrid Kirchherr. And the music is almost, the backdrop for that. But this is incredibly, incredibly well done. Stephen Dorff plays Stu Sutcliffe. The music on this is incredible. The backing band, I shouldn't say the backing band, the band that recorded this, I mean, Dave Grohl's on here, Thurston Moore, Mike Mills, Greg Dooley, Don Fleming. I mean, kind of like a sort of who's who of that, sort of mid to late 90s, kind of alternative rock kind of scene. But they do a great job of recreating that sort of raw Beatles bar band kind of sound. But this is a thoroughly entertaining movie, and by all accounts is pretty accurate to the timeline, and unfortunately has quite a sad ending. But not only probably in my mind the best Beatles movie, not documentary, but movie, and just all around an incredible biopic from 1994. So if you haven't seen Backbeat with Stephen Dorff, and the other thing I should mention is the guys that they have playing the Beatles look uncannily like the Beatles and do a great job sounding like them. So just a fantastic movie.
I went to look for it. I couldn't find it on the streaming services. And I think when I look at my Visa bill at the end of the month, I have every streaming service that there actually is. So I'm not sure where it is, but I did go and look for it. So
yeah, and it may not be anywhere. I have it on Blu-ray, and I've since downloaded it and put it on my own media server at home. But Yeah, I don't know if it's widely available, but it was screened in theaters and stuff back in the 90s, and then it was on TV numerous times. But not a lot of folks have heard of it, but it's a very, very, very well done.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna there we go, make myself a little smaller. The best Queen doc was Magic Years Volume 1, 2, and 3. Haven't seen that, but I love Queen, so why not? I like the Elton John movie. It captures personality. I've not seen it. Most hilariously bad biopic, Def Leppard, Hysteria. Sorry, Alex. They lifted so many lines from behind the music.
I remember, this is so funny. When I was doing the whole thing when I was probably 14 or so with them, I remember seeing on the TV guide that Hysteria, the Def Leppard story, was going to be showing on VH1 at like midnight on like a Wednesday. And I had to convince my parents to let me stay up and watch it and the whole thing. And it's bad. I will say, of course, like the only good actor in that whole movie was the actual like only actor in that movie, which I think Anthony Michael Hall played Mutt Lange, and like did a great job. Everybody else, it was just so cheesy and so just tacky, just the worst. So yeah, totally agree.
It's too bad that Sam disappeared, because when he comes back, you're going to have to explain to him what a TV guide is, because he's far too young to remember what that is.
He still uses it.
Does he?
Yeah.
Richard, you've never heard of it. You should. It's good. I mean, like, I don't know if it's obscure or not, but I also see there's another comment further down where someone's asked me to re-list the musicians. So Greg Dooley on lead vocals, Don Fleming on guitar, Dave Grohl on drums, Mike Mills on bass, Thurston Moore on guitar, Dave Perner on guitar. So some pretty big. I mean, Dave Grohl's on everything, but other than that,
I'm surprised Dave Grohl hasn't joined us here this evening.
Well, it's because we haven't asked them.
Well, that's true. He'd probably come on. He might. I don't know.
Might. Yeah. That'd be funny if you actually did show up one day. Just shoot him off an email. Darren wants to know, has anyone seen the 4-hour documentary Tom Petty's Running Down a Dream? Well, if Sam wasn't dead, he would come on here and say, there he is.
Sorry, got choked up talking about music.
Have you seen the 4-hour doc about Running Down the Dream?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's killer. It's from like 2006 or so. It's really
I was going to bring it up, but I assumed Sam was going to. So, yeah, it's great. I'm
not. It wasn't one that I was going to bring up because I've talked about it before, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, while you were away, Alex mentioned a TV guide. Do you know what a TV guide is, Sam? I know you're young.
I do. It's what Al Roker was on when he visited Seinfeld. Yeah. No, I know TV guide quite well.
There you go. Okay, so I did that. Hey, Cardboard Head Guy. How you doing, man? Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. That's funny, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to call 911 for you, do we, Sam? John's asking.
It's too late, John. I already coughed up half a lung.
Oh, boy. Let's see here. Those musicians were some popular bands. Yeah, Soul Asylum, REM, Foo Fighters. Exactly. Yeah. All right. We got like 15 minutes. What do you guys want to talk about?
Well,
you want to talk about things you wish you could see, or
yeah,
more you want to talk about?
I mean, this guy said earlier, and Joe made a good point. There's some good sort of, I think, like independent things thrown together. I think just because we've been waiting on it, there's so many different, I think, aspects the music fan right now is waiting for. Whether it's a documentary,
what they're waiting for is Jason Arsenault to make another video.
It's true. Yeah. This to me is this sets up perfectly for the mini series or the sort of new model of documentaries now, which is like, here's 4 episodes, each of them is 50 minutes long or whatever, sort of thing. But we need something professionally, expertly done with some money and some incredible interviews about Badfinger. We just do, both from the standpoint of this, but because you think about it, right? Like, you could go into huge depth about the origins, right? Being on Apple, their relationship to the Beatles, Paul McCartney giving them Come and Get It. There's so many, just in the origin story that you could do with Badfinger. Then you can focus on the influence, right? Again, I think Badfinger became another, band's band or musician's band, right? I think a lot of the casual music fan, okay, they might know a couple of hits, but they don't know the influence there. Why I think a lot of you are, especially those, what became in the mid to later 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, all these groups were looking up to Badfinger. And of course, then just, the story. I mean, just what an absolute tragedy story that is almost too wild to believe. And here's the thing is, like, we're still waiting. There's still Badfinger music that is yet to be released. There's still, stuff that got recorded back in 75 that got shelved and then got released on CD with terrible quality. It's never been released on vinyl. There's just so much. I think the challenge is that there's one remaining living member, Joey Molland, who, I'll say it, like, he's a fucking problem. And, the saddest part is, and I mean, no pressure on him, but he's probably heard it enough times, is literally, Tom Evans, the bassist, who was the second Badfinger member to hang himself. It was literally over a legal dispute of Joey Molland trying to take royalties for a song that he didn't even write. I don't know, you know what I mean? And it's like, and he's the remaining member, and he's still out there every once in a while doing solo shows and playing a bunch of Badfinger songs that he didn't write and he didn't sing, and he's still doing the thing. Because Pete Ham, to me, is like, I put Pete Ham up there with some of the greatest rock stars and songwriters of all time. And Joey didn't do any of that shit at all. But he's out there singing. See, now I'm getting mad because Joey's out there still playing Baby Blue because it was cool on Breaking Bad. And people think, oh, look, it's the Baby Blue Badfinger guy. Fuck you, Joey. And that's my thing, too, is Joey would be the guy. He's still alive. Everybody else is dead. He would be make me fucking big, man. He would be the guy to do it, but I don't want his version of it. I mean, that is the biggest challenge right now. Is I would never wish. Well, maybe I would. Like, I don't wish anything bad to happen to him. I mean, he's getting old, but I don't think a proper Badfinger documentary could be done while he's still alive. Because he would be in charge of it and he would be the say in all of it. And his version of it is going to be trash and just straight basura. And so that's where it's at right now, but we need it. I mean, we need everything to focus on the management and Stan Polly and Warner Brothers and Apple and all these motherfuckers out there. And we need it, but not when Joey's still alive. Anyway, I rest. Thank you.
Well, I applaud that, so I'm going to give you this. There you go. Nice. I really need to get a ba-dum-thumb, and I need to get applause sound effects for next week. So, and you notice, Alex, look at this. I super sized. Look at that. We even disappeared. That's how big I made you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I try my best.
You do great.
I try my best. How do we follow that?
And also, I want to put it out there. Badfinger released Wish You Were Here before Pink Floyd released Wish You Were Here. So when you hear Wish You Were Here, it's fuck shit.
Are you gonna go off? Sam? You can go off on Roger Waters for a while if you want. He's a dumbass. But anyway.
I saw some Badfinger records today at the store. I never know where to go with them.
Yeah.
So you didn't buy Pearl Jam and you didn't buy Badfinger.
Well, even Beastie Boys, but
I'm sorry, Beastie Boys. That's what I meant.
To say. No, I didn't buy them either.
Now we need the crossover. We need like
if you want it.
There's a lot going on.
Pearl Jam do the robot?
No, but that's Intergalactic from the Beastie Boys. That was one of the original. That was such an MTV thing. I'm sure.
Sorry, I dragged
I'm
into
sure
this,
you remember because it was this idea of a giant robot doing the robot. Intergalactic,
planetary. Cool friends. Wow.
So let me do my list quick. I'll do it quick so that I don't forget. So Sam mentioned The Wrecking Crew and did it so eloquently. I'm going to go watch it later if I can find it because it is very good and I just haven't watched it for a while. So I'm going to go do that. But along the same veins, there's a couple of good ones out right now. Stax, the Stax Records is out and it's very good. I watched it, I think, last week. Great stuff. Talks a lot about, obviously, about Otis and all of that and Booker T and the MGs, how the Wrecking Crew was Capitol's band. The Booker T and the MGs was Stax band. And it's very good. It's a decent one. There is the one about Muscle Shoals as well. Also pretty good. Haven't seen that one for a long time, but that's good if you haven't seen that one. Again, I like the ones about the studios or, obviously the record companies as well. What else have I got? As I look at my list, I write shit down so I won't forget. For the Canadians in the house or for everyone, the first time that the Plastic Ono band ever played together, including Eric Clapton, was at the Revival 69 concert in Toronto. Also a very good documentary. A little jumpy around, but pretty good. So that's a good one to check out. What else did I have? The Joan Jett one. If I can mention Joan Jett, I will. That one's pretty decent. That's a good documentary. And I think so far there's a biopic coming and there was a documentary, and that is Linda Ronstadt. It was a good documentary, and I look forward to it hopefully being a good biopic as well. I believe Selena Gomez is supposed to be Linda. And I think that'll be a good fit because Selena's actually pretty decent little actress. I think she's done a great job, obviously in Only Murders in the Building. And Count Me In, the one about drumming, also another good one. I think it was called Count Me In, wasn't it? With Taylor Hawkins and
I forgot about that one. That was a great one. Yeah,
that's pretty good too. So there, I got my list in. Now go ahead, everybody else.
Well, I can think of two other biopics that I don't have anything to show for them, but back in late 90s, there was a 2-part miniseries biopic on I think it was on NBC, and it was just called The Temptations, and it was 4-hour dramatized version of the story of the Temptations. I remember watching it a couple times with my dad, and I thought it was fantastic. I knew nothing. I mean, I knew who the Temptations were and I knew the music, but didn't know the story behind them, and it's a pretty interesting story. And then the other one, and biopic is a stretch because it's more of a musical movie, but I thought the film adaptation of Jersey Boys was pretty good. Don't know how factually correct it is, but I mean, shit, I've probably seen it half a dozen times. It's thoroughly entertaining, and I mean, I think it gives you the gist of the story. I don't know necessarily if point by point it's spot on historically, because the whole point of that is to be a musical. It's adapted from a stage musical. But I thought it was an entertaining movie, and it tells me enough of what I need to know about Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So
saw it on Broadway. It was very good.
I saw like the touring, the touring version. I think I saw it in Toronto. So,
but you're right. The movie was good. It was different, right? A little different than the stage play, but not a whole lot. There was just some different stories, or some shit they left out, or some shit they put in. I can't remember. So anyway, Sarah, sorry. Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No interruption at all. We'll get caught up on the comments and we'll go around the horn and wrap this thing up. I supersized the Alex TED Talk. Yeah. It's always a good night when Alex gives a TED Talk. What can I say?
Yeah, I like the callback to supersize. That's good too. Rest in peace, Morgan.
That's right.
The best part about Come and Get It is, would you walk away with that major 7th chord? Bands that need official documentaries. Black Sabbath.
Yeah, because Black Sabbath, you have all 4 players still.
Yeah. Darren, thanks for joining us, man. Glad to meet you virtually through comments.
Exactly.
Alex and I are cool friends.
Yeah, exactly. Darren, you should. You probably know, living in Hamilton, a great record store, Records on Wheels in Dundas, is closing. They were supposed to close at the end of this week, but they've prolonged things until next Friday. So open for another week. You stop in there. He's got some good sales going on. I'm going to try and get down there next week. So Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here is superior. Richard wants the Stax one. Lollapalooza is great. Speaking of Lollapalooza, that reminds me, there is a great documentary on Netflix about the absolute shit show that Woodstock 94? That's a damn good documentary. 99.
Oh, 99.
Yeah.
That was
and shit show. If you look up shit show in the dictionary, it has Woodstock 99. That is the definition of shit show.
Right. Do we remember the Who at the C&E with Joe Jackson being bottled off stage? No, I don't. I'm probably too young for that.
Yeah. I'm old enough for that, but don't remember it.
What was the making of the Woodstock film called? That was really interesting. Wasn't it just called Woodstock?
It was Woodstock, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got the soundtrack on vinyl here. I don't know what John's talking about. We'll just ignore him.
No, he's talking about Whiplash, right?
Yeah, that's not my pace.
Right. Yeah. It is. But yeah, for sure.
All right. Darren's asking one. Darren loves the Canadian content. What do we think of Kim Mitchell and Max Webster? I think everybody loves them, do we not? And I'm still looking for some Max Webster for you, Alex.
And every time I go, maybe I should talk to Joey Bag of Donuts over there about my Max Webster, because here at the record store, I cannot find a Max Webster record in the state of Ohio. So
he doesn't ship. You got to go to Regina and get it yourself.
I know.
For Alex, I would ship.
But I'm not paying $40 to have that shit shipped here, Joe.
It's worth it though. It's good. So yeah, that's my answer. Is Max Webster was fantastic, and Kim Mitchell just did such a fantastic job. And Peter Fournette, as the backup singer, could have had his own band, could have been a singer on his own. So fantastic. Yeah, big Kim Mitchell fan. Saw him last year, can still sing too, which is always nice. Does he still do the radio show in Toronto in the mornings, Rob, that you're aware of?
I don't listen to the radio. I think he was on Q107 or something like that. I don't know if he still does that anymore. So,
yeah,
no idea. But we'll find you some, Alex. Between Joe and I, we'll track you down. Normally, it's easy to find it. Just because now I'm looking for it, I don't see it anymore.
And I want to say one quick thing before we go around. One thing I want to show for people, because I talk about the Avett Brothers all the time, and some people are probably still like, whatever. They had a documentary called May It Last that was directed by Judd Apatow, surprisingly, and Michael Bonfiglio. Came out in 2017. It kind of fell around the time that they were doing their album True Sadness. But it really shows them. It shows them with Rick Rubin at Shangri-La Studios. And it shows, because Seth Avett was going through a divorce at the time, but he was also in a new relationship with somebody, because it covers a couple of years. Shows him becoming a father and how that music transpired into that record, which is now, 2 records and an EP old now. But this documentary is fantastic. I think it aired on HBO when it first came out. But check this out. It is so good. It's a great music documentary. It shows them, as great songwriters. It shows them playing live in North Carolina, what North Carolina means to them as being their home state. It shows them going home to their family farm. Really, really good. Judd Apatow, obviously most famous for all of his comedies that he's done, did this. He's a huge fan. And, it just shows, like the Avett Brothers can fill out Madison Square Garden for 2 nights in a row. So this is a really, really good documentary, May It Last, a portrait of the Avett Brothers. So I wanted to plug that. It's fantastic.
Very good.
So anyway.
Darren clarifies Kim Mitchell got fired. I remember that now. Yeah.
See that? Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. All right, let's go around the horn. What, Joe, you're a guest. You go first. What have you been working on? What have you been doing? I mean, we sort of touched on it at the very beginning 2 hours ago, but what do you want people to know?
Yeah. Unfortunately for my main channel, which, everybody here, not everybody, but those would know, I haven't really been doing a whole bunch just because I've been super busy with the record store. It's got its own. So I've been, again, busy with that. and life a little bit as well. So I appreciate the fact that you and I have done a little bit of stuff, that you guys have me on the show, and that's kind of what I'm going to continue to do for now. And so there won't be any regular content per se, I don't believe, for right now anyway, on my channel, but hopefully every once in a while my face will pop up and we'll go from there. So a big part of why I like documentaries is just because we all love music so much, but then it gives me the opportunity to sound like I'm smart and say facts like Dolly Parton wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same day. She wrote both of those songs on the same day, which I learned from her documentary, which was always great.
Very good. Alex, what's cooking?
Well, a video of mine posted literally as we were talking today. So, and this is actually for all of you that get jealous that I live in a city in the States that has like 6 record stores that are within 10 minutes of me. But we have one of them that had a just a big overflow, sort of like a, hey, we got too much shit right now. We got to move some stuff. So here's a bunch of overstock record store day titles from the last couple of few years that we've discounted before, but we just need to clear space and get rid of them. All these are $5. So I bought 22 of them.
Attaboy.
So I just posted a video that was like, I bought 20 RSD titles for $100. So that just posted, which is kind of fun. It's a lot of stuff I'm not actually familiar with, but I was just reading hype stickers. Like there's no, bangers in there. Like there's no $100 records in there. It's stuff that people didn't want, but I'm excited. It's a lot of like old school, like rediscovered soul, jazz, funk, like that type of stuff. A couple of these are on craft, you know what I mean? Like just good stuff. So that's the big thing right now. So yeah, that's it for me though.
Sam?
Y'all can see on my channel I have not been very active in the last couple of weeks, but I did post a video forced upon me by my buddies Alex and Jason, who were very kind to pitch in and give me a late birthday present. So I just posted a VCLT video. Very, very kind of those guys to send me that. So that posted a few days ago, yesterday. I wish that I could say that I have more stuff coming. I appreciate the subscriptions, and I have a ton of videos that you can watch. I have over 400 videos. I've just kind of been in a creative rut the past few weeks to put out, meaningful content that I want to put out. It's just not there. Again, I am going to see a concert Friday, so I think that I'll probably have a concert review either Friday or Saturday, at the very latest, maybe Sunday. Of the concert I see this weekend. So stay tuned for that. That will definitely post. But otherwise, it's been kind of quiet. I'm not really part of any collaborations at the moment. A lot of quiet channels, but I'm still there. I'm still around. So come see me.
Good. As for me, Sam, you mentioned you were struggling with ideas. So my routine is I always film my video on Friday night and I edit it on Saturday and I upload Sunday morning. So it's been my schedule for 2 years. Friday, I'm racking my brain going, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And then I'm like, I have an idea. And it ended up being too similar to the contest entry that I did for Alex a few weeks back. So I'm like, I don't want to go to the well too many times. So I'm sitting down here like 11 o'clock. Can't think of anything. So I said, piss on it. So then Saturday night, which is normally my edit night, I'm like, I really need to come up with a video idea. So at the last minute, I came up with this idea of 3 Beatles records you might not know about. I whipped it together, filmed it in like 15 minutes, edited the video in about an hour and a half. I posted it. And sure as shit, this has been the most successful video that I've had in the last 2 years. 1,500 people watched it in 24 hours. And I went, what the cool, great. It was didn't expect any more than a couple hundred people would watch it, but it's been awesome. Pretty great. So that was my video for last week. I talk about the stuff the Beatles did with Tony Sheridan when they were in Hamburg, and I talk about the Decca auditions, and I talk about the Star Club recordings. So it was kind of interesting. It was fun. And then what's coming up? Joe and I just the other day recorded, as I mentioned earlier, an episode that is going to be on my channel on Sunday. That'll be my weekly upload. On Monday, it will also be the audio for the Vinyl Community podcasts. And Joe and I talked about soundtracks. So that's what's up.
Very cool.
Oh, Joe's going to show some. Hold on. Well, let me make you big for that. Hold on. This is for you, Alex. Max Webster.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's a couple more too. I just didn't want Sam to think I wasn't listening because I was listening, even though I went off cam. I just wanted to go and see if I could find those because they're in a secondary box of stuff.
What's the one that you always see? It's white and it's the one that has diamonds on it.
Million Vacations.
Million Vacations. That's the
In the
one
box.
you see everywhere.
Yeah, it's in the box. I just couldn't find it. My favorite though, I don't know. Again, I don't think it's. No, there's also the one where Kim Mitchell is like in the yellow banana leotard or whatever. That's pretty good too. So yeah,
you'll dig these albums, Alex. We'll find them for you.
Thank you.
I listened to a Mahogany Rush the other day in your honor as well, or at least I thought of you fondly when I did.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, folks. To my fellow guests, our guest, Racer Joe, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hopefully, Jason Arsenault will be back next week. He's busy doing something like work, but thank you, Sam. Thank you, Alex. And thank you to everyone in the comments that spent 2 hours listening to us, a bunch of idiots ramble about stuff. We really appreciate you spending your time with us, and we hope that we entertained you. So thanks, everybody. We will see everyone next Wednesday.
Peace.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good night.